Hi there, Political Science 28. This is module number 2. The goals for this module are just to find where QGIS is kept online, to download it and install it, to learn how to download a shapefile and bring it into QGIS. So if you're looking for course materials, I think you know that you can go to Moodle, and they're located down here at the bottom underneath tutorials, assignments, and under module 1 we've got the videos for module 1 and the learning goals. And because we're still developing stuff under module 2, this is where you'll find the videos once this video is complete, and the PDF, and you can download that. Another place to find course materials is on Sandbox Atlas. And Sandbox Atlas is kind of a collaborative blog, and we are under GIS for Social Science and the Liberal Arts, and the course is right here, Political Science 28 for Swarthmore. So you can also see the URL up here. It's sandboxatlas.org/politicalscience28. And if you click on module 2, it'll snap you down to that one, and you can download the PDF there as well. We'll also have the videos embedded here very shortly. So once you've downloaded the module 2, you can kind of open up that PDF and take a look at it. It's got my office hours and Emily French's office hours here. I'm on Mondays from 2 to 3, and Emily French's Wednesdays 4:30 to 5:30. And this one seems a lot longer than our last week, but what you'll notice is that there's a lot of screenshots in here. And so this is kind of just a click by click where to find QGIS and where to download it. And I'm going to show you really quickly kind of where to do some of that stuff as a screen share here. So if you open up your browser and type in QGIS, you should find it's one of the first hits on Google, QGIS.org. This is an open source GIS platform, so Geographic Information Systems. It's great because it handles lots of different file formats, and it's completely free. So even though there's kind of the most recent, we usually suggest you get the long-term release, which is called the LTR. The current long-term release is 3.22.16. So if you go to download now, you should see that there's a download for Windows, which will give you a .exe file, which is called an executable file, except I think you want to download not this one here, but the long-term release 3.22. So you can click that, and it will download just like that. It looks like it's a .msi, so it's a little different, but it probably needs to be unzipped. For Mac, it's the same deal. You'll get a .dmg, I think is the file that you get there. So follow through and click through. If you have any problems installing, come to one of our office hours and we can help you out. Once you have it installed and you're ready to open it up, start by, before you even do any project file making, create for yourself a folder and call that folder something sensible. And this will be something for all of your course, maybe right on your desktop. So I'm going to call this Political Science 28, and I'm going to go underscore, and we'll just call this modules or GIS modules, because this is where we're going to keep all of the information for our GIS modules. And in this project folder for our class, I'll actually go ahead and I'm going to create a module 2 folder as well. So in here, I'm going to write module 2 because that's the one we're working on. And so this leaves room for module 3, module 4. And here, I'm gonna start by putting data and making my project file kind of go into this folder. And it's really important with projects to always have some kind of hierarchy where you're making sure that files don't just go anywhere, that they have a specific spot to go. Otherwise, it'll get really hard to find things later, because it's a very, even though we're doing analysis, it's a very creative process, which means that there's lots of, as I like to say, sawdust that goes along with the work. So in here, I'm going to create what I usually call an underscore data folder. And I do an underscore just so that it's sticky and it stays to the top if I create more folders. Then I'll go ahead and open up QGIS, and we're going to place a project file in this same level here, in this module 2 level. So I open up QGIS, And you'll notice that because I've used QGIS a lot, it has some past projects that are popping up. For you, you can just, it'll probably be blank, but I'll just hit this new project so it's all blank like that. And you may or may not have a right panel here. You don't need to worry about that. You can X out of them for now. The most important panels for you as a new user to remember are this panel right here is called the map canvas. And this is where we actually see what we're talking about. This is where the layers will be visualized and we'll be able to see the data. Over here is a layer panel, and this is kind of like it tells us what items we're currently showing. And what's confusing about that is that sometimes we're seeing different examples of the same piece of information, the same data, right? So just like if you were going to have a playlist on Spotify or some other similar program and you had multiple instances of the same song, that doesn't mean you're creating more data by having that song play multiple times. You're just you're showing it multiple times. And the same way here, if you have one piece of data, you could visualize it and stack it on top of each other more than one time. And the layer panel is the way that it's telling us what we're looking at in the map canvas, and it lets us interact with the data. The browser is important because this is where the files actually are kept on the computer. It's kind of like a library. And this is where we find the data that we want to look at. And so browser, layers, and map canvas, and that's kind of the most important stuff you'll have to know for this first entry into Q. But we're not even looking at anything, so it's good to get a base map. To get our first base map, I want you to go to Plugins and Manage and Install Plugins. And I already have the plugin that we want, but I'm going to show you how you would find it. So what we want is, it's called Quick Map, quick like that, and then MAP, Quick Map Services. And if for some reason you can't find it, like I'll just uninstall it for a second so you can see, uninstall, close. Let's say I was going to go find that again, manage and install plugins, and I typed in Quick Map Services. It's showing up now, but if there's a reason it's not showing up, you may have to go to settings, and you have to show experimental and deprecated plugins. Sometimes some of the cool stuff that we like to use, we want to make sure we check those boxes just so that we can see all of the options. I think this one's available regardless, but so you click Quick Map Services and say Install Plugin. And what this does is it gives us what's called a tiling layer. And a tiled layer are base maps that let us, that we kind of trust someone else to make. So you're probably familiar with Google Maps, right? Google Maps. You probably, Bing Maps, OpenStreetMap. There's a few. And what they have are these different base maps that they're tiled, meaning you can zoom in and zoom out and you get a different array of information at each level. So here, for instance, I'm seeing the states and some major roads, but if I zoom in, I start to see more roads and more detail. And so it's tiled, and that just means that the whole map is being created somewhere else, and we're being allowed to see whatever piece of it we want. So the tiled maps are great because they let us just kind of see the world, and we don't have to worry about building a custom base map. So once you install that Quick Map Services, we're going to go and under Web here, you should be able to see Quick Map Services, and let's just throw in the OpenStreetMap standard, and that's just a simple base map that we can check out. And if you throw it in there, it's going to have us zoomed way out. This is the whole world in a Web Mercator projection, but we'll kind of zoom into the areas that we're interested in on the eastern seaboard here. And that's good. That's good for now. So the next thing I want to do is I want to save this. I'm going to save this project so that I can close it out. And if I open it at any time, it'll bring me back to the same view with the same layer. So I'm going to say Project Save. And I'm going to go back to my desktop in my political science folder, Module 2, and I'm going to call this Module 2 project file, like that. So, and you can save as a QJZ or a QGS. Either one is fine. So I say save. And now I've saved my project file. And if I hit X out of it, or if I Command Q or quit out of it on a Mac, then it's okay, because now I can go back to my folder under Module 2 and open my project file. And if I open my project file, it should bring me right back to where I was. And there I am. So now what I want to do is I want to go download an interesting piece of information to look at on top of the space map. And what we showed you in class the other day was called the redlining maps. And the redlining maps are from the Mapping Inequality Project at the University of Richmond. And what they've done is a really great job. They've digitized hundreds of, I think, yeah, probably hundreds, at least hundreds or dozens of these redlining districts. And as you'll probably encounter in the literature, or that there's a book called The Color of Justice, which goes over this. And this is how the HOLC restricted suggested mortgage lending for different groups of people based on their race and or ethnicity or kind of immigrant status. And so these paper maps were made in the early 1900s, and paper maps are great as a historical document, but for doing GIS analysis and making our own custom maps, what we really want are these vector objects. And I don't know if you can remember from the first couple weeks, but there are two types of data that we most normally see in GIS. There's raster and vector. And in human geography or political science, we're mostly going to be seeing vector, which means points and lines and polygons. And in this case, we're looking at polygons. And these polygons that we want all represent different districts or different redlining districts, zones. So to get those, what we have to do, let's just say we want to do Baltimore here. So we go to Downloads and Data, and I hope you can see the URL there, but you should be able to also just Google Mapping Inequality Richmond, and you should find it. But once you go to Downloads and Data, let's scroll down to Baltimore. Actually, I think it's pretty far down the page. So I'm going to go Control F and just type in Baltimore like that. And so I'm going to download the shapefile. The shapefile is good for a desktop GIS program. It's kind of the industry standard vector file format. There's also geodatabase and a bunch of other stuff, but for now we'll work almost always in shapefile. And then the scan is kind of like what you would see at a library, right? Like if they had the actual piece of paper and scanned it, it's a JPEG. This georectified image is a warped version, and it's probably kind of confusing. Like, well, why would you have two? But the cool thing is that this georectified image, if we want to download that, we can drag this straight into the GIS program. And so we'll get that historical map on the actual physical ground or in the, with coordinates in our GIS program. So once everything's downloaded, what I want to do is transfer the data that I downloaded to my data folder. And the way I'm going to do this in a Windows environment is to just open up my data folder here, and I'm going to go to my downloads. You could open it up in the browser or in here and just click and drag. And then what I need to do is, these are zipped files, and a lot of things when you download them are zipped because it saves space. It means that they're compressed. And if you just open them up, you'll see that there's stuff inside of it, like that. There's stuff inside. And you can just click and drag it out, or the faster way is to select them. And on a Windows, you right click on a Mac, I imagine it would probably be Option click or Control click, and you get some options, and then you want to extract all. And extract means we're going to unwrap these zipped packages. And when I say extract all, it's asking me, where do you want me to put this data that we're pulling out? And I'm actually going to just put it all at the data level here. So I'm just going to say, put all of our data here. So this is called a UNC. This is a file pathway. And I'm saying, in this folder, under Module 2, under Data, please put all of the extracted files there. So I hit Extract, and I come back up here, And I see the shapefile. I didn't see this one though. So maybe I need to try this one again, because this one worked, but the other one didn't. Maybe I should have only do one at a time. So I'll say extract this as well. And I'm going to do the same thing and extract it to the data folder. Extract. There it goes. And so now that I've extracted those, I can delete my zipped files. Don't need those anymore. And now I can go to my GIS program and we're going to pull these in. And one thing you should remember about shapefiles, and there'll be another video about this, is that the computer can read this as one file, but in a Windows browser or in your Macintosh browser, you're going to see 1, 2, 3, 4. You really only need these 4 files, but sometimes 5 files, and they all go together. They all work together. The shape is what the shapefile looks like. This is a projection. This is kind of attributes, and this is a connection file. So they all work together. So if any one of these files is missing, the file will probably not work correctly. So make sure that if you move these, you move them all together, and you don't move just a piece of them. So now I'm going to close these windows and close my web browser and open my QGIS file. And I'm going to go to my desktop, navigate to my desktop. Let's see if I can find it here. And I'm going to go to my Political Science Module 2 folder, my data folder, and I'm going to bring in this vector file. I don't know if you can see, but a bunch of polygons just popped in down here in Baltimore. And that is great. And so these polygons in Baltimore, these represent the districts that we saw here on this mapping inequality. Oopsie. This mapping inequality site. So each of these are the red line districts. And it's cool. I brought in this one too, this .tif. It's called a TIFF file. So if I drag and bring this one in, you're going to see that, aha, yes, there's the paper map. And it's warped because someone has taken pains to select points from this in the real world to geo-reference it so that this actually matches up one-to-one to the ground. And the reason it's warped is that a lot of older maps have distortions, or they're done in different projections, so it doesn't always map up perfectly. And so what's the point of doing all this? Well, we're going to find out in the future that to design our own maps, we need lots of layers of data to kind of come up with the visual that we want to show. And just to show very quickly, one of the interesting things you can do, let's say we've got a modern base map like this OpenStreetMap, and then we have this historical map on top. If we wanted to, very easily, we could just change the transparency so we can see both at once, right? So if I open up the properties to this layer, this historical map, and double click it, I could go to transparency, and I'll make it 50% and say okay. And I don't know if you can see, but just now we've made it so that I can more easily see both maps, right? You can kind of see that some interesting demarcations here. So hope that's interesting. That's all I've got for you today. We'd like for you to get to this point and take a screenshot of one piece of information, I think is what Emily French said in her thing, and just upload that to show us you got here, and we'll take it a step further next time. All right, thank you.